Sarah Dowie.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to speak on this Omnibus Act. Again, another technical bill, and these bills do seem to sit with the Government Administration Committee, so as a member of that, I guess, along with the member opposite, who is the chair of Government Admin, I guess we must have the brain power for these very technical bills, and so it's wonderful to be speaking upon this bill. So I note that it has cross-party support, and that's fantastic. It's fantastic that these changes to the interpretation of these bills will be made expediently and will allow clarification because, you know, obviously laws, the aim for laws and statutes are that they are read in plain, simple English, and that anyone can pick them up and read them, and that it doesn't become a legislation fest for solicitors. But I would like to just focus my comments on one part of this bill, and that is with the Official Information Act 1982 and those changes. When I used to work for the Department of Conservation, obviously official information requests were very important. They kept us as officers of the Department of Conservation honest and accountable, and this Act plays a very important role in doing that. So just starting from the beginning, obviously Clause 72 clarifies that the request for official information be communicated in any form, including orally, and quite frankly, this was often the way that official information was, or requests were communicated to us, and it's only fair that people be allowed to request information in that way. Obviously, it helps to clarify that request when put in writing, but you know, using your emotional intelligence skills, you can talk to the requester, delve a little deeper and investigate as to what they want, and take notes and let them request that information in an oral manner, and I think that is fair. Clause 73 of the Official Information Act, the amendment there clarifies that partial transfer of official information is permitted. And that's fair enough too. While at the Department of Conservation, especially in the concessions realm, I was dealing with quite a lot of information, lots of printout reports from a computer database, and often it was time consuming to collate that. And often the requester would need that information as soon as possible, and that is actually part of the Act, that government departments deal with the requests as expediently as possible, or at the very least within 20 working days. So the partial transfer of information allows that requester to obtain the information earlier than obviously waiting for the entire request to be processed, and means that they can act on that themselves in an expedient manner. So with regards to Clause 74, it clarifies that if a request for official information is amended, then that revised request is to be treated as a new request. And again, while working for the Department of Conservation, often requesters would change their minds. That would change the nature of the request. And that could be quite a significant change for officers dealing with that information, especially if it's a great deal of information at the other end. So it's only fair that the officer gets a fresh time limit to deal with that information at that time. Clause 75 of the bill puts beyond reasonable doubt or beyond doubt that official information is able to be released electronically. And that saves on cost, especially when there is quite a few reports being generated in those requests. It means that the requester doesn't have to pay for the information, and it can be just emailed to them, and they can flick through that relatively quickly and get the gist of the information that they need. And I think that's pretty pragmatic. It's probably been going on for some time, but it now just sets that straight in the legislation so that there can be no challenges. With respect to Clause 76 in the bill for the Official Information Act 1982, it clarifies that an agency must make reasonable efforts to locate the information before refusing on those grounds that the information can't be requested. And I can speak firsthand about working for the Department of Conservation, that we have screeds, or the department has screeds of information generated back 7 years. I think they have to keep the information. There are files upon files, and it can in some ways become onerous for them to check for that information. But it is accepted that the Official Information Act is about transparency, it is about accountability, and hence those officers must exhaust their efforts, use reasonable efforts to locate information that is requested. And with respect to Clause 77 of the bill, it clarifies that the Ombudsman can notify the Chief Archivist if a request is refused on grounds that may indicate the Public Records Act 2005 has not been complied with. Again, a check and balance that's required with respect to the Official Information Act. And finally, Clause 77 of the bill clarifies that the Ombudsman can hear complaints under the Act that an agency has failed to decide a request as soon as reasonably practicable. So again, another important checks and balances with respect to the Official Information Act, which is so important in our democracy to maintain that transparency and accountability. So, Sir, it's with pleasure that I speak to this technical bill. It's an expedient way to deal with a number of changes that do have cross-party support. It allows us to get on with the more pressing business, but allows things to be tidied up under these acts so that you, to coin a phrase, can't drive a wedge through that legislation. Goes to the intent of the primary legislation, and certainly helps us deliver better public services for New Zealand. So with that, Sir, I commend the bill to the House.